The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Donald Trump is starting a trade war. And you know what? He said he would do it. This is actually, for once, Trump doing something that he campaigned on doing. Trump announced late last week that he's going to put in place a 25% tariff on imported steel and a 10% tariff on imported aluminum. Now, many people emailed and said, David, can you explain the difference between a tariff and a tax? They're similar in many ways, but tariffs are specifically on imported goods and services. They're used to make products, to make stuff more expensive to consumers. And the consumers of a lot of these products are often industry, not individual consumers. And the similarity between the tax and tariff is that it increases the eventual sticker price of the end good or service, typically a good when it comes to goods that would be that would have a tariff placed on them. Trump says he might do this as early as this week. He tweeted about it with glee and, of course, with no real understanding of how this stuff works, saying when a country, USA, is losing many billions of dollars on trade with virtually every country it does business with, trade wars are good and easy to win. Example, when we are down $100 billion with a certain country and they get cute, don't trade anymore. We win big, it's easy. I think the only accurate thing there is that he identified the United States of America as a country. I can't find anything else there that makes any sense. And this sort of gets back fundamentally to issues of free trade versus protectionism. And when we have that conversation, we have to realize that the way that Trump has been blaming trade deals for problems in the American economy, manufacturing jobs, and that type of thing, it's become a very convenient scapegoat, but it ignores a lot of realities that Trump either is deliberately ignoring or is just ignorant to. Of course, there have been many manufacturing jobs that left the United States. But many jobs also have simply been eliminated by automation and by robotics without actually going to another country. And as far as the bringing back of the jobs that at some point did leave to other countries, a lot of those jobs have since been automated away by automation or robotics. So when you look at a decision that's made by Trump like this, first of all, it's going to impact products made with steel and aluminum, right? Consumers don't buy much steel or aluminum directly, but many of the products we buy and businesses we engage with do buy those materials. Now, number two, other countries can also do things, as Donald Trump likes to say, in retaliation to these tariffs. Other countries, including the European Union, which is a group of countries, of course, can take steps that would be terrible for us as a result of this. And in fact, the president of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, has already said, quote, if the Americans impose tariffs on steel and aluminum, then we must treat American products the same way. We will put tariffs on Harley Davidson, on bourbon, and on blue jeans, Levi's. The Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, said that the U.S. putting in place these tariffs would be absolutely unacceptable. China expressed grave concern. That's a quote over the plans. And you also have to consider sort of how fundamentally backwards the overarching themes of the administration are, right? There's a total refusal to impose the sanctions that the House and Senate approved for Russia as a punishment for things they actually did. And meanwhile, Trump is gleeful on Twitter about implementing what are sort of de facto sanctions, right? Economic sanctions, in a sense, on the European Union and on Canada, which, by the way, the largest exporter of steel to the United States is Canada. Now, there are sort of two debates here, two debates that can be had. One debate, generally, is free trade versus protectionism. And you've got the free trade side, which says free trade opens markets. It reduces prices for consumers, which has some truth to it. And of course, there are downsides to free trade. Free trade degrades the rights of workers in many ways. It can have a downward influence on wages. It's arguably terrible for the environment in more than one way, actually. The protectionism side likes to argue that tariffs and trade restrictions by countries protect those countries' jobs, that country's jobs, but that they do raise prices. So you keep jobs, but stuff costs more. I believe that as it relates to Trump's tariffs, it's less about free trade versus protectionism than it is about trade wars. Because as it stands, what Trump will do, if indeed he carries these tariffs out, start a trade war, right? And there's no evidence at all that trade wars are good for people. The impact of a trade war inevitably is that you increase prices for U.S. consumers on a whole bunch of products as well as for businesses. It will lead to a loss of sales for American businesses because they are going to be exporting less to other countries as a result of that retaliatory effect. And then you will see that those lost contracts for American companies take a long time to get back. If you do 2 years of this stuff and then you cancel it, for example, you don't get all those contracts back for American businesses. It actually takes a long time. So what do we ultimately circle back to? Well, we circle back to that in 2018, lots of political and economic issues require collective solutions. I've talked about this before. Donald Trump's entire America First thing, aside from being sort of a reminiscent calling card of really horrible movements that use that same phrase, Trump's America First thing ignores sort of the political realities of 2018, right? The issue of climate change, the idea that an individual country can solve climate change is ridiculous. You can't have a nationalist solution to climate change. You can have individual countries working together for a world solution, but pollution doesn't respect country borders. The jet stream and the way that the tides in the ocean work aren't going to say, oh, we're crossing over into another country's oceans. Well, no, we're not going to do that. So you don't have to worry about the plastic in our oceans, for example. You need collective solutions. Trump ran on acting unilaterally in the interest of the United States. It turns out it's just incredibly naive and childish in today's globalized economy, like it or not, right? Whatever your position is, it is naive and childish to pretend or to argue or assert that an individual country can sort of unilaterally solve some of these major problems. And this gets me back, once again, sucks that we have to go back to it, quite frankly, to the sabotaging of relationships by Donald Trump and of the reputation of the United States around the world. Is there any possible upside to this? The only upside is that Trump has said he's going to do this, but it's probably possible that he could be talked out of it. And there's only one possible indication of that. This morning, Donald Trump tweeted, "We have large trade deficits with Mexico and Canada. NAFTA, which is under renegotiation right now, has been a bad deal for the USA. Massive relocation of companies and jobs. Tariffs on steel and aluminum will only come off if new and fair NAFTA agreement is signed." And then he goes on to talk about Canada. So there's a couple ways we could interpret that. One is that Trump is just generally clueless. He tweeted after Wilbur Ross proposed these tariffs, Trump said he's going to put the tariffs in. Now somebody went back to him and said, hey, you know what? This is actually going to do a lot of damage. You may want to just consider the possibility of not doing it. And Trump has now come up with a new way. He's sort of qualifying the tariffs by saying, if we get a NAFTA renegotiation that he likes, would he even understand it? I guess if someone tells him it's a good renegotiation, he would back off of it. But this is not a good direction to go in. And we've seen it, not that the stock market is the be-all, end-all of how the economy is doing, but the fact that the stock market has been both crashing and erratically swinging like a yo-yo since we heard about this on Friday. This is the type of instability that, again, I know that in some ways some people are tired of hearing this. Other countries, I don't have to name any country, other countries generally benefit from American instability if they want to be seen as authorities on democracy or economic powers or the countries that we should be dealing with to figure things out. So in all ways, this is a bad idea. And it's a separate question from if we were to go back to the beginning, whether we would want to adopt a policy closer to free trade or closer to protectionism. We have a status quo, and what we have to consider now is sort of how these pronouncements, how these decisions will impact that status quo, and this is not good. Send me your thoughts. I'm on Twitter at dpacman. The show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show. We've got a lot to talk about today, including Melania Trump liked one of our videos, and it was about her. I'll tell you about that later.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Today's new member of the day is Peter Pimentel. Peter, thank you. Thank you for being a member. And today's sustaining member of the day is Joyce Glover. Joyce Glover has been a member since May of 2011, getting close to her 7-year anniversary with the show. And it's just amazing that people have been supporting us for this long. I think in 2011, I'm trying to think back, I think the show was 2 days a week, or maybe 2 days a week in 2011.
Broadcasting from where?
Who knows? Antarctica might as well have been. It feels so long ago. No, I think in 2011 was still Northampton, Massachusetts. Then it was New York City, and then eventually Boston. So thanks to Joyce, who's been with us since 2011, and also welcome to Peter Pimentel, new member of the day. Sign up, davidpakman.com/membership. You can also become a patron at patreon.com/davidpakmanshow. Okay, before we move on to other topics today, I do want to follow up with a sort of side story related to Donald Trump's tariffs, 25% tariff on steel, 10% tariff on aluminum that he announced late last week. The overwhelming majority of Trump policy during the first 13 months of his presidency has been a combination of just sort of flat out bad policy combined with cronyism and the filling of the swamp, the very swamp that Trump promised to drain. And there's an element of the steel and aluminum tariffs that also point in that direction. We've already gone over the policy side of it, right? I told you in the first segment today, we're not going to win trade wars. Trump is wrong that they're easy to win. Terrible economics, maybe a total lack of understanding of economics by Donald Trump. Now we get to the possible cronyism part. Do you remember the name Carl Icahn? He was once an advisor to Trump. He's a known Trump friend. He's a known businessman. And he's worth about $17 billion. Icahn is either incredibly lucky or might have been trading on inside information because he happened to sell $31 million worth of stock in a company that very directly relies on steel as a source material just a few days before Donald Trump announced that he'd be putting a 25% tariff on imported steel and a 10% tariff on aluminum as well. And the company in question is Manitowoc Company. They manufacture those huge construction cranes and lifting solutions, which include the cranes you often see on boat yards that lift containers. So steel, nevertheless, is a major, major deal for them. And as a result of Donald Trump's announcement, Manitowoc's shares were down 16% from their February 22nd price, which is the day that Icahn decided to sell his stock. But you might say, even though Trump didn't announce the tariff until after February 22nd, it was actually February 16th when Trump's Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross called for the tariff. So it's possible that Icahn, sort of seeing the writing on the wall on February 16th, decided to start selling as a result of that public recommendation from Wilbur Ross. Well, that's true, but if you actually go back and look at the data, Icahn started selling his shares of Manitowoc on February 12th, 4 days before Wilbur Ross's recommendation went public. Now, if you're a skeptic, and you should be, right, anyone who wants to thoroughly explore what's going on here would say, hold on a second, David, was Icahn regularly buying and selling shares of Manitowoc leading up to that point? Because if he was, it's not really a big deal that he decided to sell a whole bunch because maybe he had been buying and selling big bunches of it for a long time. Great question. Glad you asked. Before mid-February, Icahn had not been actively buying or selling the stock. He had no purchases or sales of the stock for at least 3 years, dating back to January of 2015. He's already a big swamp guy, called a special advisor by Trump. But he didn't clear up his endless conflicts of interest before accepting the position with Trump, so he ended up resigning right before a New Yorker article was going to totally expose him. He admits he occasionally still talks to Donald Trump. He did not buy or sell any shares of Manitowoc, requiring a disclosure for at least 3 years. And then he gets rid of 31 million in shares days before major tariffs on steel are announced. Either this guy really has the great business sense that I guess maybe made him 17 billion to begin with, or he's a rancid swamp dweller here. And I was thinking as I read these articles about this, about House of Cards, there's this character Raymond Tusk who's friends with Frank Underwood. And something about Frank Tusk and Carl Icahn, they really seem to be similar in many ways. And there are Trumpists defending Trump by saying nobody with Carl Icahn's net worth, 17 billion, would be dumb enough to do this over $31 million because they'd know someone would notice. I actually disagree. Trump and everybody around him for his entire 13 months in office, really for several years, even during the campaign, they've been acting in ways where you would think no one would act this way because I'm sure they know they wouldn't get away with it, right? But no, they do it anyway. It doesn't seem to matter to them. And in many ways, they all probably think that they can get away with this stuff. Will we ever know the truth? I hope so. I don't know that we will. But Carl Icahn, hell of a guy. One of the primary elements of America as a concept and as a Western democracy with separation of powers and checks and balances and a constitution is that we don't have a king and we don't have dictators for life, but we have presidents who can serve 2 terms. And George Washington himself could have been king of the United States. The military at one point tried to put in a monarchy with George Washington as king, and he resisted. There was another opportunity for George Washington to potentially become king of the U.S., and he resisted. And you might remember that during the presidency of Barack Obama, the most outrageous, the most extreme, arguably the most sort of heretical, and I'm using that sort of tongue-in-cheek, conspiracy theory launched against Barack Obama was that he would either change the Constitution to allow himself a 3rd term, or even more insidiously, declare martial law to justify the indefinite suspension of presidential elections. You remember those conspiracy theories? Now, anyone with an ounce of common sense knew it wasn't going to happen. Obama never mentioned it. Obama never alluded to it. And of course, it didn't happen. President Obama left office on the on the anniversary of his 8 years in office and turned over power peacefully. That gets us to 2018 and the Donald Trump presidency. Donald Trump is now openly expressing a desire to become president for life, to become effectively a dictator. And over the weekend, as many of you know, I try to stay away from politics over the weekend, sort of decompress, detoxify. But over the weekend, I started hearing about these headlines. Trump says he would like the idea. Maybe he will try to become president for life. And I said, it can't be true. It's clickbait. It's fake news. It's propaganda. But no, it's true. Donald Trump is just thrilled with what Chinese President Xi Jinping has done, which we talked about on the bonus show last week. He changed the law to allow himself to remain president of China. And Donald Trump says that it's great and maybe we'll give it a shot someday. And I wish it weren't true. I truly do, because an incompetent president is one thing, a compromised president is another thing, and a corrupt president is yet something else. But a president who thinks that it would be great for the United States of America to become a dictatorship is something altogether different. And we know all of this because of a recording. There is a recording behind closed doors that was obtained by CNN where Donald Trump said about Xi Jinping, he's now president for life, president for life. No, he's great. And look, he was able to do that. I think it's great. Maybe we'll have to give that a shot someday. I had some hope that Republicans would see the attempts to subjugate American elections by a foreign power, right, Russia, as an issue that should be beyond partisanship. But they didn't see it that way. They're mostly defending Trump. I have had the hope for a long time that the issue of the swamp would sort of cross party lines and we'd finally see Republicans and Democrats truly come together and say no more cronyism and corruption. But despite Donald Trump breaking his campaign promises about draining the swamp, Republicans have been mostly silent. Can Republicans and Democrats come together and say, no, any president who aspires to end the fundamental nature of what makes the United States, that person simply cannot be our president? Can Republicans and Democrats come together on that?
Probably not, because Republicans will say that this was just a joke.
Oh, of course.
And I'm sure it was a joke, because I don't think that Donald Trump enjoys being president. So would he want to do it for the remainder of his life? Maybe not.
I think the condition where he would is he doesn't have any repercussions for what he does because he's president for life. In a way, it's sort of like perfect for the guy who doesn't really like dealing with the realities of being president. But you're right. The it's a joke thing is already spreading through all the subreddits that are the usual suspects in the right-wing websites. But when are we going to take the authoritarian fascist with dictatorial pipe dreams seriously, right? And to the right-wingers and everybody saying that it is a joke, and who said when President Obama was president that he is going to steal a third term or suspend democracy altogether, where are you now, right? Because if your defense now is Trump isn't serious, then how do you justify ever saying Obama was going to do it when he didn't joke about it, he didn't allude to it, there was no actual reason to think that he was going to do that? Good luck talking to them about that.
Yeah, and even if these are just words, they still matter, because what the president says is important to the entire country. When he says that there were good people on both sides in Charlottesville, or that he would have rushed the shooter in Parkland, that's going to have ramifications. If
a president says he likes the idea of president for life, that is a red flag, as Pat is pointing out here. If it's a joke that we laugh off, then why was anyone focused on Obama stealing a third term, even though there was no actual reason to think he would? There is no bigger red flag than the president openly saying maybe he'll get a shot at president for life someday. And this is sort of the most important political position in the U.S., the president, threatening to abuse power to make an attempt at upending the most basic institutions and parameters of American politics. I'm waiting for the right to say no more. I want to be pleasantly surprised by them. I'm not going to hold my breath for it, though. Hey, this is super weird, and it's spreading like wildfire, and I don't really get what's going on. Melania Trump has liked on Twitter our video questioning how she got an Einstein visa. Remember that last week we did a story about Melania Trump coming to the United States, and the story was called on YouTube, How Exactly Did Melania Trump Get an Einstein Visa? And the story got some attention. As of this morning, it had about 25,000 views on YouTube, and I got a bunch of emails about it. But then overnight, late last night, a Twitter user named David Almrod tweeted out the video. And the official Melania Trump Twitter account, the verified Melania account with nearly 1 million followers, liked the tweet with our video. And if you're watching at this point in time, you'll see on your screen that Melania Trump's account, with its 975,000 followers, had 3 likes as of last night around 1 a.m. Eastern time. One of those 3 likes is this video from the David Pakman Show YouTube channel. How exactly did Melania Trump get an Einstein visa? Now, by this morning, 2 of those 3 likes were removed or unliked, which you can do on Twitter. And so if you go to Melania Trump's Twitter account now, you will see that there are no longer 3 liked tweets, but only 1. And our tweet, our video rather, is no longer one of the things that she likes. What the hell is going on here, right? I mean, there's no doubt at all at this point that Melania Trump is aware of our coverage of her on the David Pakman Show. The only way around that would be that she was hacked, sort of like the Ted Cruz excuse. But again, if someone hacked Melania Trump's Twitter account, why is it that they're going to like a random clip from the David Pakman Show of all things? So I don't think for a second that there's a hacking sort of situation here whatsoever. So then I started thinking, well, is it an attempt at satire by Melania Trump? Is it subtle trolling, which we've already speculated, and people on our Twitter, on our Reddit have been saying, is Melania trolling Trump because she's liked a bunch of really odd tweets, including a tweet by Barack Obama and all this different stuff? Has her Twitter account been managed by someone in her office who thought this was a good idea? I don't know, but I think the most likely scenario is that it's some kind of avant-garde performance art. No, I'm kidding. I think the most likely scenario is Melania Trump was trying to watch this video and accidentally hit the like button on her mobile device or something like that. And then when her staff caught it, they unliked it. That's my thought.
Probably because we weren't saying the nicest things about Melania in that video.
Not at all.
We usually lay off, but the fact that she was able to get an Einstein visa raised a lot of questions for us.
Many, many questions. And I don't know what her thought would be. I mean, listen, I don't think I have to say this, but she's welcome on the program anytime if this is a subject matter that she's interested in talking to me about, although obviously that's never going to happen. But there's an article in the New York Daily News about the fact that she liked our video. The article quotes me. We're linking to it in the YouTube clip for this story. An article in the Daily Mail, which is, you said it's a conservative sort of a right. Is it kind of like a not like scandal tabloid type, but doesn't it go in that direction? Doesn't
I'm not
Daily
sure
Mail?
entirely, but it's a legitimate publication. That's
Yes,
for sure.
no doubt about it. It's not InfoWars. Let's put it that way. AOL, which shockingly, there's still a thing called AOL News, America Online. They have an article about the fact that Melania Trump liked our video. And my expectation is that by the time people watch this clip, there will be even more articles about this.
Yeah, I'm pretty starstruck over here, honestly.
Oh, me too.
If Melania Trump's watching, I want to make sure I look okay.
I sort of played out this whole scenario in my head where like she's sitting there on Air Force Two or something like that, and she's on her phone, and she comes across our video and hits play, but then instead she actually hit like, so then she actually plays it. And I'm like going through the entire thing of Melania Trump actually watching the clip, which is super interesting in my mind. I think I don't know that we have any reason to think Michelle Obama ever saw one of our clips. So the fact that Melania seems to be consuming content from the show, it's fantastic. Maybe maybe at some point we will get an answer about this. And I hope that at some point Melania's representatives, her spokespeople, the spokespeople for the First Lady, issue a comment about this. That would be fascinating.
And you better believe that we'll cover it too.
We will no doubt cover it. Discuss this with us on our subreddit. Already people picked up on the fact that this is going on, and there's a thread going on about it. davidpakman.com/REDDIT. We'll be back after this.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
So the demand for David Pakman Show bumper stickers has exploded, and a ton of it has to do, hilariously, with covering up Alex Jones' InfoWars bumper stickers, not only in the United States, but around the world. And it all started because Ryan in Rochester, New York, wrote in and said that he drives by an InfoWars bumper sticker on an electrical transformer on the way to work every day, and could I send him a David Pakman Show bumper sticker, and he will cover up the InfoWars bumper sticker. And he did. We can put the picture back up. This is Ryan, who covered up the InfoWars bumper sticker with a David Pakman Show bumper sticker. And this caused a huge influx of bumper stickers to be purchased. People all over the US and in Canada, and I think in Europe, are also planning to cover up other InfoWars bumper stickers and send in pictures, to the point where we actually ran out of stickers last week. But I have a fresh new supply of both the black and white David Pakman Show bumper stickers. And that's why I come to you today to announce, if I may, that we are going to be giving out free bumper stickers to anyone who gets a new yearly membership. That's the only rule. You got to get a new yearly membership. We are also launching a new coupon code, so you can get a bigly discount on those yearly memberships, and that coupon code is VoteSoon18. We've retired I Voted 17. I feel like it's been long enough. We're retiring I Voted 17. The new coupon code is VoteSoon18. All one word, all lowercase. That will give you a 40% discount off of the membership of your choice. Whether you pay full price or use the discount code, you can get a free bumper sticker. We will mail it to you anywhere in the world, okay? I don't care where you are in the world. You get a new yearly membership, we will mail you a free bumper sticker when you do that. If you're a member currently, fear not. If you're currently a monthly member, you can get the free sticker by converting to a yearly membership, and you can do it at full price, or you can do it at the 40% discount with the coupon code VoteSoon18. If you currently have a yearly membership, you can restart your membership and get the free sticker as well. Although if you're in that situation, it's probably cheaper just to buy a bumper sticker at davidpakman.com/gear. We are going to be featuring on the program clever bumper sticker applications, I think is what I would call them, on upcoming shows. And I know that a bunch of people already have projects for using the bumper sticker to cover up something else, which I think some of them are going to be hilarious. And this is important. How to actually get the sticker. Once you get your new yearly membership at davidpakman.com/membership, reply to the new member email. When you sign up, you get an email, an automated email that says, you've done it, you've subscribed. Reply to that, which should go right to me, David at davidpakman.com, and say, hey, David, I would like the black bumper sticker, or I would like the white bumper sticker. There are two versions, and tell me your address, okay? And then we will get those bumper stickers out to you within 24 to 48 hours. The dream scenario for me is to have to order another batch of 200 each, 200 black and 200 white bumper stickers within like 10 days. That would be just amazing.
I'm very big on this initiative, and you know that I'm not driving right now because I live in the city and I don't really need a car.
Yeah,
but I'm thinking about buying a car just so I can put a David Pakman Show
I was going to say, go buy a car just so you can put the bumper sticker on there. And listen, if you want to put it on your MacBook Pro or on your backpack, if you've got a Herschel backpack, I know those are big with our audience or whatever. Electrical transformer. Disclaimer, I do not endorse or condone any vandalism. Check local laws before you apply a bumper sticker anywhere, and do not be a criminal. I think it's important to make that disclaimer.
Some laws we're okay with you breaking, but not vandalism.
And I certainly wouldn't mention which ones I'm okay with people breaking. So that's it. New yearly membership. You'll get a free bumper sticker after you sign up. Email me, and if you want a 40% discount, use the coupon code VOTESOON18, all one word, all lowercase. Here's another exciting new initiative. It's actually kind of working out that we don't have an interview today because there's so much that I have been waiting to talk to the audience about and just haven't had time. You might remember that a few months ago, I told you that the David Pakman Show had launched on a new platform called Steemit, STEEMIT. And without getting super deep into the nitty-gritty, Steemit is a blockchain-based platform where instead of our content earning money through people watching ads, we earn money through people upvoting our content. And this is what our Steemit presence looks like. We're showing the television audience right now, which is at steemit.com/@DavidPakman. And the way it works is the larger one's stake is on the platform, and that is measured by something called Steam Power, the more in earnings that they can assign to content they like when they upvote it. So let me give you an example. When I first signed up on Steemit, I had a brand new account. I had no stake in the platform, so my Steam Power was zero. When I would upvote a piece of content I liked, I would be giving the creator half a penny. Not a lot of money, right? Not going to get you a lot of bumper stickers with half a penny. But over time, as I've gained more Steam Power on the platform, I now have about 5,200 Steam Power. Now when I upvote someone else, they get about $1.50. That is a major, major difference. If you multiply that out over thousands of users, that becomes real money. So then the obvious question is, how does one accumulate Steam Power? Well, there's two ways: by posting and by curating other content. And the thing I like about the platform is that there's no such thing as censorship or demonetization, because the content that users upvote in proportion to their Steam Power is what generates earnings for content. It's what gains visibility. And as you can imagine, this has been really big for us in the wake of YouTube's demonetization adpocalypse. So that's how it works, right? I've told you all of that stuff before. Several hundred of our viewers and listeners have gone over to Steemit and they've started building up their accounts. The reason I'm bringing it up today is that over the last 4 to 6 weeks, conservatives have started to sort of overrun the Steemit platform, partially because they've also been hit to some degree by demonetization, and partially because they simply like the platform, because who wouldn't? It's a great platform with no censorship at all. So it's been a couple of months since I mentioned Steemit to you, but I am asking for your help today. We got onto the Steemit platform ahead of many of these recent right-wingers that have got on. So we sort of have a head start, but without your help, we're going to fall behind there. So my request is, make an account, right? Go to steemit.com. That's STEEMIT. Create an account by hitting the sign up button that's in the upper right of the page. It does take a few hours to a couple of days to get your account approved. Just hit that, bear that in mind when you go through the sign up process. And once your account is approved, follow us. We are at David Pakman on the Steem blockchain. And if you want, you can also set up an auto voter for all of our posts. There's another website which works with the Steem platform called Steem Voter. And you can go there and actually configure your account to automatically upvote what we post. Now, even if you don't understand a word of what I'm talking about, you can still contribute, which is just go and make the account and then upvote anything that we post. And this has been a big, big help to us over the last 4 months, and it's only going to get bigger for us if, and this is a big if, we can get more of our audience to help us out. To give you an example, a post on Steemit that does really well has like 250 upvotes, okay? If we can get just 1% of our audience to follow us on Steemit and to upvote our content, we will, by orders of magnitude, multiply what an average good post is on that platform. So this is a huge opportunity. I hope people will help us, and I'll keep you posted as far as how's it going on upcoming programs.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
There's a 25-year-old social studies teacher at Crystal River Middle School in Florida who happens to also moonlight as the host of a white nationalist podcast called Unapologetic. Her name is Diana Volitich, but she's been using the pseudonym Tiana Dalikov on the podcast that she hosts. And in this podcast, the Florida social studies teacher brags about how she teaches her white supremacist views in a public school. She rails against diversity in schools on her podcast. She promotes debunked race IQ conspiracies. She brags about how she has been hiding her white nationalism from school administrators. And she even hosted a guest who said that white nationalists need to infiltrate public schools specifically to become teachers and spread white nationalism. And she agreed with the guest. And she said she is one of those teachers that is doing exactly that. Now, I'm not going to play any of her podcasts for you, but there are episodes available online, which you can find easily if you're interested in that. And like any good white nationalist, obviously, she's anti-Semitic. She loves the work of anti-Semitic author Kevin MacDonald. She has talked about the complex Jewish question, which is a known way of referring to the anti-Semitic conspiracy theory related to Jewish control of media, banking, and politics. She has praised and defended and retweeted neo-Nazis and white supremacists, including the infamous David Duke. And she also believes, and this is so crazy because I told you last week this was happening. Remember that teacher last week in Georgia who fired a gun in school? She said that that was a false flag conspiracy theory, exactly like I told you some lunatic conspiracy theorists were saying. Really checking all of the boxes here. And we have learned over the weekend that Diana Volitich has been removed from the classroom. That's the word that's being used. She's not been fired at this point. There's an investigation going on, but she has been removed from the classroom, according to the superintendent of schools there. So obviously that's the right decision. She should be fired. But this is going to bring up questions of free speech. I'm not saying that they are warranted questions, but it is going to bring up questions of free speech because this is a public school, and this is arguably, some will say, a government entity, in other words, public schools are government run, telling her that her speech outside of the classroom disqualifies her from her job, which is in a sense the government deciding what speech is okay. However, I don't know that that's the only explanation, because in the podcast, she does admit that she's teaching white nationalist views to students in school. And that's very different because now all of a sudden you can get rid of her because she's teaching white nationalist values in school. So I actually don't think it's an issue of free speech.
Yeah, see, I was going to play devil's advocate and say that all teachers have their own personal opinions, their own personal politics, especially here because she's a social studies teacher, so she knows about government and civics. But as long as you can keep that outside of the classroom, maybe there's a case to be made that you can stay on.
Listen, I am not a free speech absolutist, right? I'm not on, if you think of a spectrum from 0 to 100, 0 being total control of speech, 100 being absolute and total free speech, I'm at like a 96, right? Where I think that incitements to violence, if you go on a plane and you go, that guy, he's a terrorist, attack him, and that's not true, right? That is a type of speech that is okay to regulate because of the implications that it has. Speech regarding when you're talking about something like child pornography, and there's a big debate about pornography being a type of speech. When it goes into child pornography, you are now talking about age of consent. You're talking about someone. It's a different scenario, right? It goes beyond just speech. So I am not a free speech absolutist. I think that I'm like a 96 out of 100 on that issue. But here you do have a situation where she is admitting that this is becoming part of how she is teaching children in schools. And at that point, it does become an issue for the school district. And it's true, if she had a podcast about knitting, you wouldn't care whether she was talking about knitting and evangelizing about knitting to her classroom, because that's not fundamentally at odds with the values of the public school district. This is different, and I think that we will hear free speech complaints from some people. I don't think that they're going to be legitimate or hold up.
And the sad thing is this could actually be beneficial for her career, because even though she may lose the teaching job, maybe some right-wing site will take her up and have her podcast, have a podcast on their outlet.
Absolutely. She will be guest hosting for Tucker Carlson for the next 3 weeks, I'm sure. Okay, I present to you today full, unhinged lunacy or terrible people. You can decide which it is. I'm not going to tell you which it is. And this story comes to us from Newfoundland, Pennsylvania. I guess to push back against what some churchgoers saw as an unfair attack on assault weapons as a result of the mass shootings where such weapons were used, worshipers in a church held a ceremony where they wore what looked like dollar store tiaras, as well as strange sort of cloaks or gowns, and clutched AR-15 rifles, almost like you would hold a baby, and drank holy wine and said vows to the AR-15 rifles. This is basically the closest you can come to marrying a weapon, okay? And the entire thing led to a nearby school shutting down classes for the day. Dozens of AR-15 rifles were brought into the church. The religious connection was they said it symbolizes the rod of iron from the Christian book of Revelation. And the pastor who leads this church is Sean Moon. And if the name Moon rings a bell for you, he happens to be the son of the Reverend Sun Myung Moon, now deceased, who was a self-proclaimed Messiah and founded that cult known as the Unification Church. They make this very, very real all of a sudden. I've been talking about Second Amendment fetishists for years. What is more fetishization of weapons than saying a vow to your AR-15 rifle in a church service while clutching it like you would a newborn baby? They are doing the equivalent of pronouncing a lifelong commitment similar to a marriage vow to a gun, and it's indistinguishable from ISIS. It's a different flavor, but this is the Taliborn again, or the Tally Baptists, call it whatever you want. Now, when you look at the details, as if you need to, it actually gets even more ridiculous, because when they got to church with their AR-15s, an attendant would check each weapon at the door to make sure it was unloaded and that it was secured with a zip tie, which would prevent it from discharging. How does that make sense, right? Guns are great. Gun-free zones are terrible. This is so important to me that I'm doing the equivalent of marrying it through a vow, but we actually don't really trust the worshipers with the guns, so please check your bullets at the door. Like, every aspect of this is a self-parody.
It's a good thing that they had those zip ties, though, especially because that whole crowd is drinking wine.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Otherwise, you'd have a group of armed people who are also intoxicated. I don't want to see that.
And of course, the wine that they were drinking is the blood of Christ, obviously. And it's like, you know, I know that that's a common thing, but in the end, is that any more normal than marrying a gun?
Literal body of Christ.
It's a different,
blood of Christ.
It's a different, oh yeah, and the wafers are the body of Christ. That's a different story, probably not what we're talking about today. But what we're talking about today is that this is what we're fighting against, right? I've talked about how if we don't have some shared set of values that can serve as a jumping off point to resolve our political differences, it's very difficult to have a productive conversation about policy, right? How do you start a conversation about gun safety with someone who dresses up to go to church and does the closest thing you can do to marrying a gun, right? And that's why I don't actually think you can talk to these people. These are individuals that need to be marginalized in the political system. They need to be made irrelevant through voter turnout, because how do you start a conversation with someone like this? What sort of shared value can you have with someone who says, what I need to do as a response to the school violence and the mass shootings and the political discussion about guns is to bring my rifle to church, dress up with a dollar store crown and a pink and white smock, white gloves, and basically marry my rifle, right? Where can we start? Like, I just wouldn't even know. I wouldn't even know where to start. And that's why I don't think we really can talk to these people, and that voter turnout is the way to marginalize these views to the extent that it's even possible. And, you know, this church is in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a relatively purple state, which can go one way or the other. And this is what we're fighting against. It's bad. We have a voicemail number. That number is 219-2-DAVID-P. And I have some news that, how do I introduce this? I mean, I guess it's news that some people will be disappointed by and some people will be thrilled by. And the news is that the Texas troll is quitting the David Pakman Show, resigning and unsubscribing from the David Pakman Show. Why? I'll let him tell you. He can say it much more eloquently than I ever could.
Yeah, David, I think it's finally time for me to unsubscribe. It's really sad because I watched your show for a while, but after seeing your latest segment on Rachel Maddow, some caller called and asked you about Rachel Maddow, and you really didn't hound her as hard as I thought you were. I'm starting to realize that you are the same as everyone on MSNBC. And then I read all the comments on that video, and everyone's defending Rachel Maddow. Yeah, that's pretty disgusting. Rachel Maddow is a horrible, horrible, horrible person and part of corporate media and part of what's wrong with this country. Goodbye, David. It was fun while it lasted.
It was. More for you than for us. Listen, I've met Rachel Maddow a couple of times, and as far as a person goes, I disagree that she's a bad person. She seems like a very, very nice person and was very friendly and nice. That's number one. Number two, I basically, when the caller called in and asked me about Rachel Maddow, I basically said, I don't watch her show. The one time I've seen her show in the last 4 years is the day that she teased Trump's 2005 1040 tax return. And I thought it was underwhelming, and I don't watch the show. So, like, what did you expect me to say? It's a show I don't watch. The only episode I've seen in years is that one episode. And also, why would you go by YouTube comments to decide whether you want to watch our show or not? I mean, our YouTube comments are also riddled with anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and people calling me, you know, a cuck kike. But is that a reflection of anything that we're saying on the show? Seems like a weird reason. But listen, we're not going to hear from the Texas troll anymore. He says he's self-selecting out.
And that's going to be tough, I think. But with all relationships, you learn from each other, and we'll get through it. It'll take a few weeks maybe, but
and not everything lasts forever. Not everything lasts forever. That's the reality. Things end.
Now we're taking applications for the new Texas troll.
Yeah.
You have to be a troll, and you have to be from Texas.
I actually would rather just have the Kansas troll start calling back in, because he's basically the best troll we've ever had. And remember when he called in during live calls and tried to troll us, and he totally face planted. It's amazing. I hope he calls in.
I like the troll who only trolls some of the time, so you don't know when he's trolling and when he's being serious.
That was the Texas troll. Remember when he
that's
the
him?
guy. Yeah.
Oh,
he's
man.
the guy who disclosed, I only am sometimes trolling. Anyway, goodbye, Texas troll. Some people will miss you, I would guess. On the bonus show today, we will talk about the school officer, an interesting role, the school officer. I have actually stories about the school officer at my high school. We will talk about Stephen Hawking, who says he thinks he might know what happened before the beginning of time, and how Tesla might contaminate Mars. A very interesting story on the bonus show, which you can get access to by signing up for membership at davidpakman.com/membership. Use the coupon code NEWCODE, VOTESOON18. VOTESOON18. Saves you 40%.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.